All right. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your Instagram account. So I've
Oh,
followed for a
thank
little
you.
while.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Oh, okay. My name is Anaya. I am the founder of Adventures of, it started as an artistic installation, just one installation, and then it kind of went on from there. And they're all grief centered. So I'm an interdisciplinary artist and grief guide and loss doula, and currently, recording a podcast and then also writing some things here and there. So I could do a lot of things.
Yes. No, absolutely. Wear many hats.
Oh, so many hats. I love hats.
Yes, absolutely. But you have a story to tell. You have a story to tell. And I would love for you to take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your story.
Wow. It's been a long time since I've really said the whole story, which has just been incredible. Back in 2007 was, I got married in 2008. I mean, not in 2008. I'm sorry. Let me start over. I got married in 2007. And he and I had been, talking about a family and really wanting those things. So we were kind of like, we were in that part of our relationship where everything was just all about like, starting our life. And I got pregnant that year that we got married, and then that was when I had the miscarriage. And so, being in the town that I live in, the care that I received in this first pregnancy was subpar, and was, basically the practitioner was like, "What do you want me to do?" When I called to tell her that there was something wrong. And I'm like, maybe make an appointment and, see me and talk to me about, my options and what's happening with my body. And she really didn't respond to that. She did have me make an appointment with the nurse practitioner that was there, and that's who I saw. My husband was with me. Um, and they did the exam, and the nurse to me, patted me on my leg and was like, "Well, this pregnancy is not viable." And I basically just lost my shit, like right there, because I was like, "Are you like, that's what y'all do? You just pat, pat, so sorry." You know, there was no other information given to me. There was nothing, like, they weren't telling me what I should do, like, nothing. And so I left this office and I went and basically passed that baby into the toilet. And it was devastating because we were expecting a baby. And turns out that I had been walking around with death in my womb for weeks. And I kept saying that there was something wrong, and nobody was listening to me. And I had to, like, you know, argue with my doctor. It was like, maybe you're just working too hard. You need to go home and put your feet up, before she would even make the appointment. And I'm like, I could just tell that something was wrong. So that really changed me going forward. And it was like anxiety on top of anxiety. Um, I don't remember going outside for like a year, probably, while I was pregnant. And fast forward to her birth. The day that they put her in my arms, and then they looked at her, and one of the doctors said, "Well, she's got a cleft palate. And if you don't do this properly, she could die." And I'm like, I just barely got this baby in my arms. What are you, not taking in consideration my history with pregnancies, not like nothing. There was no care, really. And then my regular doctor came to the hospital after that and was like, "Let's calm down a little bit. and let's really see what's going on, and let's really do some tests, and he was kind of like putting out my fire. Like, we're not going to worry right now about what they said. And so that was super traumatic. Describe to you how traumatic it is for somebody to just get up and tell you your baby's going to die when you first have them. And so, and we all know, this is why we do this work, that this really does happen, and babies do die. And so, discovering her disabilities, discovering, everything that was going on with her in our journey together over the next years was difficult. Like, she didn't learn to walk until she was 3, and delays, dysfunction. She was also deaf. So we had to go learn a new language to talk to her. And then just everything that you can imagine. We had a team of people taking care of her. There was people in our house almost 6 days a week since she was like 10 or 11 months. And the last thing that we found out was that she had a hole in her heart, and that we would have to be, look into taking care of that. This is after major surgery on her cleft palate, and a tongue tie, and surgeries on her ears to put tubes, and procedure after procedure, specialist after specialist, just trying to figure out what was going on with her. And it turns out that affected all the things that we were really taking care of with her. And the genetic syndrome is called recombinant 8. And so we were basically in survival mode again, because we're like, well, how do we take care of her? And come around fall and winter, she had started to slow down. I could tell that she caught something from school. She had ended up sick, and then she got better from that. And then we had her Christmas program at school, and we were all there. And she was the cutest little thing that we ever did see. And by the time she was 4 years old, going on 5, and in 2013, so Christmas Day, she did not wake up. And that, I think, for me, is the straw that broke the camel's back. So I think, and then a few years later, I started Adventures of Grief Girl to honor her and to talk to other parents about loss and about how we survive, and sharing tools with, things that I've learned as an artist, and helping them and tell their stories.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Obviously, I empathize with you because I do have a child with a disability, and know the struggle that goes with just managing a household with other people in it, the care that is necessary, and just the day-to-day of being mom, but also being caregiver.
Yep.
So, which is for people who don't understand the complexity of being mom and caregiver, there's two separate hats, but they're one and the same, but it's a different set of grief, a different set of expectations that you end up having. And you wrestle with both of those roles of, what am I being a good mother? Am I being a good caregiver? Am I providing my child everything that they need to thrive? Right.
Absolutely.
So I empathize with you, and definitely hold that space with you, because I know what that struggle is, because I live it every day. And
every day.
every day. Yeah, I live it every day. So I know what that means. But what you have expressed, obviously the pain of losing a child, and really holding and carrying that grief with you. I would love for you to share with us, um, how did you all navigate and kind of put things back into perspective, after she passed away, after you laid her to rest, really, how did you all start that grieving process?
Wildly, I think I just in the back of my mind always had that stuck with me. Like she could die. And so I was already kind of like making sure she had the best life and like the best, like the most fun that like you want to do this, let's go do this, and giving her experiences and things. And so for me, it was because I had to keep showing her these things, even though she wasn't here. Um, for my spouse, it was very different. He is very, reserved, and it, it's it was very tricky in the beginning because I was terrified. I've got so many losses in my lifetime, and we weren't even 40 yet. So, um, thinking about losing my stepdad, he was worried that my husband's going to drop dead because all of this grief that he's holding inside. I don't know what it's doing to his body, and I was always looking at him sideways because he never really talked about it. And so I was more of like, let me make art, let me write things down, let me I had already tools in my toolbox for things like this. Um, the energy wasn't always there to commit to my art practice. And just tell me, just do it when it comes. There's no, I mean, this is forever now. It's not just these 2 months and then it's going to be over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So um how did you get to the place where you wanted to take your artistry, the things that you did creatively, and really honor your daughter in that manner?
Well, my brother actually texted me one day and was like, you share too many pictures of her, and this is too sad for me. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, maybe it is making you sad, but this is my life. And now you've activated. Now you're going to see her all the time, But it was also a way for me to see her all the time, in knowing that everything that I did, I brought her along with me. Every time that I told my story, I brought her along with me. Every piece of art that I made, I brought her along with me. So I didn't necessarily have to show her picture anymore. I could just live my life. And if they don't see her, that's on them, but I get to see her all the time. And so I love to encourage people to take their babies with them, or wherever they're going and whatever they're doing. And people will be offended, or there will be whatever, but it's not their life. And they can feel however they feel, and they can feel it over there. I don't even have to entertain it anymore. I don't have to wonder if I'm making people sad by the things that I share. It's very simple. Don't follow me if this is not what you want to see. If you can't witness this, if you can't hold this space, it's no hard feeling, because this grief thing is, I'm becoming a professional at it. So, you know, it's And so it was like those secondary losses, there were so many. But what was I supposed to do? Like I couldn't, the idea that I couldn't share her and that I couldn't take her with me was where I was always the place where I ended up feeling crazy. Like this didn't happen to me. And I imagined the whole thing because nobody wants me to talk about it. Nobody wants to hear how sad you are all the time. And I'm like, they're going to either hear it or see it, or, but I can't put it away. Not for, other people's benefits. So, like, I am a strong advocate for doing the talking, doing the drawing, write your book, whatever you, this is forever. It's like I said, it is forever.
I love that, for people to really express it in their way, and that you use that as an outlet for you to really showcase your grief and not for it to be silenced, because many of our friends and family members want us to get back to our happy, normal selves, but we just experienced trauma, and trauma don't go away just like that.
Right? It doesn't just pick up its purse and go on down the road just because somebody else has wanted us to stop being sad. That has helped exactly 0 people that I know of. So
Yeah, so it's us normalizing the conversation by saying, hey, this is how we're grieving out loud. Like, we're grieving in front of your face and showing and keeping the memory of our babies alive, no matter what that looks like. And for you, it was through your creative artistry and really showcasing, your work in that manner. So I love that. And I think that for a lot of people who don't know how to turn or don't know really what to do to help honor their babies, a way to do that is with their hands, starting to draw or journal or create something. And I think that helps. Mm-hmm.
It could be anything. You can knit hats for babies at the hospital, or make bears for other bereaved families, or the possibilities are just endless for me. And so, like, that's what I like to help people try to tap into. What skills do you already have? What are you really good at? And that's the thing that's going to keep you alive right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I love how you also have turned to really helping other families. So can you share with us how you have stepped in and really are walking alongside of other families as a doula?
Well, that kind of just came on naturally. I have a group that I'm in, and there was a mom who really sounded a lot like I sounded in my head, but she was saying things out loud to her. And we spent a lot of hours just talking with one another, and, like, you know the regurgitation of, like, all the things that we felt were being stifled, and we both had a place to put them, and there was no judgment, there was no, there was, like, no expectation of, and these conversations would go on. And over the span of months, and then the months became years. And then, we just were picking up people even in between those times, other families that, we met because of loss, and we just kept going. And so, and then I've just added that to a thing that I offer out in the public. Um, and people just find me. It's not even, I don't even try. I don't even try.
Yeah, I love that. I love
We
that.
end more random at the library. Right. We stand somewhere random at the library, and they get to talking about how they're doing grief. And I'm like, oh, you don't say. and then we end up talking about the grief work. And then we end up talking about, oh, well, who did you lose? And so it's not always just a child, or, it's a grandparent, it's a mom, it's a dad, it's an uncle, it's somebody, they've lost, the impact of death. has, being able to just be out in public and have these open, beautiful conversations, sometimes with strangers about grief, that is my favorite thing to do, because community care, even if we never see each other again, for those moments, we can't recreate that with anybody else. And time is the best thing I can give you. And because I can't get that back. And I mean, and it's just with even now with the state of the world that we're in, our my son's violin teacher just passed away yesterday morning. And he was pretty important to us for a long time. We didn't get to see him through COVID or anything, so we had to quit the violin. So we're grieving on top of grief with this. And so I do have two living children, just to say that. And working with them in their grief as well, every day, everywhere, in every part of my life. So I'm feeling like often like this is just what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like I can't say no, you know? And when I do say no, that's when everybody's conspiring to get me right back where I'm going. Please go ahead and finish that book. Please make that art. Please put that on the internet. Like, keep going. Where's your podcast? We're waiting for season 2. So people just without even knowing that I'm something, or if I'm like having a moment where like, am I being really helpful? Should I be doing this work? Whenever I even just ask that question to myself, all the answers just come. And they're like, yeah, this is what you're supposed to be doing. I know it hurts, but here we are.
Yes. What other resources have you used? I know that you have obviously done different healing modalities for yourself, but have you gone to therapy? Have you done any, read any other books? What other tools have helped you along your grief journey?
A lot of therapy, definitely a lot of therapy. Because there has just been so much happening in my life, there's always room for me to go to a therapist. And so I've read Bell Hooks's book, All About Love and New Visions, and then books, honestly, that are not necessarily looking, with your grief. I was also a massage therapist for a long time. Um, and so that helps a lot with helping it move through the body. Um, so many things. I knit a lot. I draw a lot. Like all of these things. I like to have tools in my toolbox for when the talking runs out, because things that need to be said that I can't even find the words for.
Yes, I love that. I love to have the tools in my toolbox when it's needed. So yes. I think that is it's the reason why we all need to go to some form of therapy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because we just never know what's going to happen. I think also this last 2 years, really, as we've been in this sense of collective grief and trauma with this pandemic or endemic, I mean, because it's still going on right now, I feel like we have not had a sense of like reflection and being able to like whoosah and breathe, because it's something else continually happening on top of the grief that we've already are experiencing from other past trauma. So how have you really managed through COVID and your grief journey as we've navigated through COVID?
The real answer is I have no damn clue. That's the real answer. I have no clue. We are also homeschoolers, which my son and my littlest, they've never been to school. So on that front, we were pretty prepared for manage them through this, and I'm also very hermitish. So I like to stay home, and I hadn't minded it for a long time. And I got into that second year and I was like, oh. And I could really tell that, the fluctuations in my responses to things. And so I've really been trying to be mindful of that and like isolate myself in part of my house when trying to maintain some connections in a little pod to where we have to have an out. Some of us need to leave the house at different times, really trying to hold space and give ourselves room to do that. And no hard feelings, anybody. We got cabin fever in here. and so, and being able to hold space virtually with others has also.
Yes, absolutely. I think that definitely has helped. So, for those who have experienced some form of child loss, what encouraging words can you leave with our listeners as we continue to navigate grief and trauma and loss, and carry out the living memories of our babies through the rest of our lives? What encouraging words can you leave with our listeners?
Hmm. What I would say is just don't let go.
I love that. So, where can we connect with you after this episode? Give us all your details.
Oh my gosh. Well, you can connect with us through griefafterdark.com. I am on Instagram at Adventures of Grief Girl. We do have a private Adventures of Grief Girl group where it's peer support, where we just gather, whenever we can. We've been off for a little bit, but we are going to be starting that back up in February, Grief Talk Tuesdays. You can find me on Facebook, Anaya. I do accept friends. So that's the way you can get into my groups, honestly, as if we're friends on Facebook, and through DMs on Instagram.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Anaya, for sharing your story and your light with us. I know it'll be a blessing for those listeners and who are a part of the community.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm glad to have connected with you finally.
Yes, absolutely.